Upton. He is here this morning. And let me ask you this. Of course, you guys are not in session right now, but is this group already meeting? What are you guys doing?
We're having a lot of conversations. The staffs are working. You know, there's a lot of documentation to look through, particularly areas where we can agree on. You had the Simpson Bowles report last year. You had the Gang of Six. You know, I actually want to go back to the Peter Grace report back to the late 80s. But let's look at where we can come to an agreement. We've talked, all of us have talked with each other. Those discussions will continue today and through the rest of the week for sure. And as I'm here at home, folks really are, across our district, really pulling for us to get this thing done.
Well, let me ask you this, because, and you know this because you work in Washington, you can get the poll numbers. People are angry with Republicans and Democrats in Congress, depending on which poll it is, who has a worse rating. Don't both sides have to give a little, and what is that? I mean, what are you willing to support? I mean, the idea of new revenue, is that something that is off the table to you, or is it on the table?
Well, a couple things. You don't want to negotiate this with you, even though you and I, we've had a good relationship.
Won't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Little things you say, all of a sudden they pop up on Google. We got to get the country back to work again. And when that happens, you got more people working, you got more people paying taxes, and that's a pretty good source of revenue right there. So we need to come together. First, I think we have to look at where we can agree, add up those savings, and frankly, I'd like to see us go beyond it, particularly if you look at more than a 10-year window, which is the requirement that we have. But I can remember when the Social Security Act's amendments were approved back in the early 80s, and they looked at 30, 40, 50 years. We need to do the same thing to make sure that, in fact, our government is solvent and we can make those reasonable, right decisions and do it in a strong bipartisan way.
All right, I'd love to talk about this all day. I have to switch gears really quickly for our last question because of the startling news out of Libya overnight. Muammar Gaddafi apparently is out. Your concern, you've been a huge critic of the Obama administration on this Libya situation. Your concern now is, does this set the stage for the need for U.S. troops there?
There was an early report last spring that said when Gaddafi falls, and we knew that it would happen, that there was the likelihood, the good likelihood of U.S. troops being put in on the ground to prevent a civil war. That's what I really fear. We can't afford something like this. It's not in our best interest to do it. And we'll see how things unfold now in the next couple of days.
You're going to push for Europe? Is that who you think would do that?
Well, this was not, this was not in our best interest. We had a number of votes in the Congress. This was a fear that I certainly had. It's a lot of money. It's obviously lives at stake as well, and not something that we ought to be engaged in.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Michigan Congressman Fred Upton, thanks for being here this morning.